My boyfriend told me that he's selfish. I'm not the bad guy for not accepting that. My boyfriend is unwilling to do activities I enjoy because he said he didn't want to waste his time in life doing things that don't make him happy. He explained to me that he's selfish and I should understand that. He also told me that it's childish to watch Disney movies and shows like Miraculous Ladybug. He pointed out that I'm 21 and no 21 years old does that. He's made fun of my beliefs before telling me that reincarnation is the stupidest theory. He identifies as Catholic, while I'm against, but I'm open to all beliefs. Last night we also had an argument about what love was. He says lying is stronger than the truth because it's love. To me, what he said didn't make sense and he didn't give any explanation to back up his statement. He just got frustrated at me and said I need to think about it to understand. He's also been in a bad mood because of the recent car accident and he just found out his car was totaled. I immediately went to his place to cook and clean for him for a few days after the car crash to make sure he was okay. Yesterday, he found out that his car was totaled and I talked to him a bit about it, but I was also at work at the hospital. During that same time, the Richmond shooting occurred and gunshot victims were brought into the ER. I hadn't seen the victims directly, but saw the panic in the ER, as well as stretcher covered in blood from one of the victims. Before that, I was working with an aggressive patient who keeps screaming "witch and motherfucker" to me and my coworker. She ended up pushing and kicking my coworker. I was pleased with her again after my 4-hour shift at the ER, work a total of 12 hours. When I went home and called my boyfriend, he wanted me to show him my body so that he couldn't masturbate, but I said I wasn't in the mood and I was upset over the shooting, as well as the aggressive patient. He kept beginning and then said I wasn't even sure or there at the shooting. I live right near to where the shooting happened, so going home was a little scary, so I shouldn't even feel anything. He said his car was totaled, and I was being selfish for not confronting him. He's been really mean for the past few weeks, but I feel like it's because of the car accident. At the beginning of our relationship 4 months ago, he was really sweet and will bring me big flower buckets and take me out. He's a gentleman and always open doors for me and pays. We have a trip to Orlando this week, and he paid for everything including the hotel and Universal tickets. He's done a lot and I feel bad for getting upset, but I don't know if she'll be feeling this way, so I'm not the bad guy here. I'm not the bad guy for refusing to pay 100% of babysitting costs, declining stepdad's offers to babysit. I share custody of 3 boys, 13, 9, and 7 with my ex-wife. We've been separated for almost 5 years. During that time, we used a sitter for the 2 oldest boys and new for the middle and youngest boys. Our sitter is very much like a member of our family, and my 9-year-old is very attached to him. Unfortunately, our sitter is ready to move on and agreed to stay until the end of the summer. My ex remarried a few years ago to Chris, and they have no kids together, but he has a 18-year-old son. Chris offered to become the sitter since he has wife, home stay, full-time, and missed being a hands-on dad. No, he wouldn't get paid. I said no, I'm good. He was pretty upset and asked why. I simply said that he's not a neutral party and I don't think he'll correct with the boys like our current sitter has. Plus, I don't think he has the patience. I can't see him having a sense of humor when the 13-year-old poops an attitude, or when the 9-year-old refuses to shower, or when the 7-year-old wins. I said worst come to worst, I'll take care of it myself by changing my work schedule so I can work from home. He asked me what was up with my attitude, and I said I was being blunt. Things have gone well for the last 5 years and I want to make sure it still does. My ex is angry at me and is complaining about the money that he to spend on the sitter. She said that I should be paid 100% of the babysitter costs if we end up needing ones, since I turned down an opportunity for a free sitter. My kids are not dogs who love anyone that feeds them and take them out on walks. Chris hasn't been hands-on with them because he had his own kid and my kids are mostly with me. Being a sitter is unlike any role he's ever played in their lives. I already know how it will go down. He is going to think the boys will be happy to have him as a sitter, will listen, want to snuggle, and talk to him about personal things because that's what he did with his son. His relationship with his son has always been odd. My kids will hardly be excited and will likely want to avoid him in their capacity. What do you think? Emma the bad guy for letting my daughter have a peanut butter cake when my nephew is allergic. So my daughter recently turned 7, and for our family part she asked for a peanut butter and chocolate cake. I agreed. I let my sister know not to bring my nephew because of his allergy. It's so bad that he can even be near breathing the peanut butter particles. She asked if I would change the cake to be just chocolate so that my nephew could come. I said no, that was my daughter's cake and she can have peanut butter if she wants. She called me unreasonable because my daughter could have had peanut butter cake with her friend party. She didn't have cake with her friends, she just had pizza. She said that my daughter needs to learn to compromise for the sake of family. I told her that I will talk to my daughter, but not to expect a 7-year-old to choose her baby cousin over her favorite cake. My conversation with my daughter played out just like I predicted, and when I told my sister, she called my daughter selfish and ungrateful. She said that I'm being parent because I told her to hate nephew. She threatened that if my nephew wasn't welcome, that neither she nor her husband will come either. I said that was fine because she wasn't welcome either. I then reached out to my brother-in-law to let him know what was going on and to tell him he was still welcome if he wanted to come. He thanked me, but said that he will stay home to support my sister. Her party came and went, and my sister is still being very distant and cold. This has me wondering if I was too harsh to her and my nephew, or too soft on my daughter. So am I the bad guy? Am I the bad guy for expecting colleagues to be okay with sharing the cost of work-related carpooling? I recently learned about this subreddit, and following events today decided to finally use my account. I work as a PhD student and I'm in the minority as a car owner. Last week, I let my trio of colleagues convince me to attend a PhD defense this week for which we were all invited. Since they wanted to carpool knowing public transport is terrible in this area, and immediately offered to split the costs. No big deal. I was on the fence about going anywhere, and both the carpooling and cost splitting has happened regularly in the past. Monday, I ended up driving approximately 3 hours for a total of some 200 kilometers. Shouting combination of 5 colleagues, 1 to the defense, 2 back for work, 3 to the dinner party, and 4 back to the town while we work and leave. Yesterday I checked whether some of these colleagues were okay with me dumping the complete cost calculation in an email to the people involved, which they affirmed. About an hour later, one of them, not the trio, who later asked to ride along for ride 2, came find me during my lunch break, ardently arguing that it is wrong for me to expect compensation from friends since I was going there anyway, and that she will not pay for the costs as a matter of principle that has nothing to do with my money. Surprised, I told her pretty much what I wrote here, that driving costs time and money that is compensated virtually anywhere else, while giving my option on the situation and defending the offer of others to split the costs and why that makes sense to me. At no point did I tell or even ask her to pay me. As suggested, shortly afterwards, I sent the email with the cost breakdown to my passengers. I wrote, since multiple people were gallant enough to offer splitting the costs when they asked to carpool, here's an overview assuming I correctly remember who was sitting behind me. Names and numbers. I don't need all of everyone's spare change, so if you feel it's fair to pay me back, you can round these numbers to your advantage. The calculations I used for transparency. So far, at least 3 other colleagues have approached me to comply, one getting me to share my bank details with our whole group. But to my surprise, I also had the one who refused to walk into my office with a paper cup, not knowing what to expect but hoping she no longer considers my belief costs sharing inherently wrong. I received a thanks for the ride, a smile somewhere between forced and smug, and the cup full of the smallest change she could find. I just gave her a confused look as she marched out, curious whether she's been spiteful enough to actually take the time to count on it. I found the exact amount I'd calculated, equivalent to $1.64 out of the total cost of 30s. So I'm on the back gate for carpooling with colleagues, agreeing with the offer of the majority to share the costs and expecting the whole group to consider this a reasonable request. I'm at the back gate for holding resentment towards my father for cheating on my mother 6 years ago. My parents divorced when I was 12 due to my father having an affair. They two remained in separate homes for a couple of months until their divorce finals, and my father moved back to the States with my new stepmother. The first time I visited him out there, I remember feeling very angry, and I resented my father a lot. Here he was living the perfect suburban American dream with his new girlfriend and replacement stepdaughter, whilst my mother cried herself to sleep nearly every day. It sucked. My father's and our relationship strained dramatically. He was the one to travel to me alone. Even those visits were often awkward and tense. As I grew up, it became easier to ignore their resignment because I saw my father less and I'd ignore his calls and messages. A few weeks ago, my mother and uncle died in a car accident. They were my only family. My father came back to me with me for the funerals, then a few days after. He sat me down and explained that with no other family, I had to move with him to the States. My mother had stated in her will that the house should be sold. It was kind of old, to fund whenever future I desire. I've been here for a few weeks. Most of my time is spent alone with my uncle's dog. With resentment I've held down all these years is bubbling up. I overheard my father went to my stepmother about how regretful he was about the start of their relationship, how he hated how strained we became, how he wished my mother encouraged me more to maintain a relationship with him. I busted in after hearing that, screaming that everything he was complaining about was his fault along with me. After a few insults, I ended it by wishing he was the one in the car and not my mother and uncle. By then, he was in tears. Our stepmom held him protectively, but the two remained silent, allowing my word vomit to split out. Then I stormed off to my room. I talked to my friend from back home. She knows about the entire situation. She was supportive of me until I told her about the recent incident. She said he was allowed to vent without me screaming at him, that the resentment I feel forward him isn't healthy. I know, and I will always result in me being the bad guy to him. Now wondering if I'm the bad guy for screaming at him the way I did. I already feel like one. I'm at the bad guy for asking my sister-in-law to leave my son's birthday party and possibly ruining it by doing so. I have a 5-year-old son with my ex. I'm still in good terms with him, and he's a good dad to our son. He also had a stutter. and he's very insecure about it. It was my son's birthday party 3 days ago, and the first time my husband's family was meeting my ex, so I've told them about my ex's stutter and asked them to please not make any remarks. Everybody got the message and was very patient with him except my sister-in-law. I guess because during their first conversation together, my ex has a bit of difficulties to finish a sentence, and my sister-in-law started huffing and annoyance, and I just gave her a stop-it look. During another conversation, my ex had, once again, trouble with finishing a sentence, and my mother-in-law said, "Maybe we need to come back tomorrow, and by then, his sentence will be finished," which made other people laugh but not my ex. So I took my sister-in-law aside and told her to quiet, and if she had so much issues with talking to my ex, she should go talk with other people. She promised she would stop, and we left it all. But during yet another conversation, when my ex stutter showed again, she said, "So are you gonna finish that one, or should we just move to something else?" At this point I had enough and finally asked her to leave. I told her that if she couldn't be respectful of my ex stutter, that her place wasn't here. She protested and said I couldn't kick her out of her nephew's birthday party, but I answered that I could. My husband arrived and also told her to leave to not avoid any further drama. She agreed and left. Once everybody left, my husband started yelling that my behavior was embarrassing, that I ruined my son's party for childish drama, and that his parents were now mad at both of us for kicking my sister-in-law out of apparently. They said they wouldn't allow me in their house again if I didn't apologize to her. So, what do you think? Another bad guy for not babysitting my niece's stepsister. I have a niece, Emmy. My sister passed away 3 years ago, and Emmy stays with her dad, Rick, who remarried and has a stepdaughter, Kate. Emmy gets along okay with her stepmom and Kate. My sister and I lost our parents quite a while back, so we pretty much only had each other. I was therefore doing everything I could do, maintain contact with her, and Emmy, even though I went to college halfway across the country, and after that took a job overseas. After my sister's passing, I regularly call and text Amy, letting her know I'm there for her. We are very close, and she tells me a lot of things going on in her life and asks me for all kinds of advice, which I'm only happy to help. Almost a year ago, my job relocated me to a city under an hour away from where Riggs and Amy live. It is a promotion of sorts, so many hours are more flexible. I often drop by to see Emmy and take her shopping or go to places we want to go, usually once a week. I always call Rick first to see if the family has any plan with Emmy, but Rick and his wife hardly say no. Lately, I noticed that they try to ask if I can take Cake with me on these outings, but I always tell them no, as Kate is too young to enjoy most of our activities, like saloons, cooking classes, candle making, and etc. Amy was to stay over at my house last Saturday because we will be looking at some summer activities together on Sunday. When I went to pick her up, Rick and his wife asked me if Kate could stay the night with me. Rick's sister-in-law was breaking up with her fiancé and needed their support. The wedding was like 2 weeks away and Rick's wife was the bridesmaid, so there was a lot she needed to do. They said they will be back to pick the kids up on Sunday. I told them no. I have no experience babysitting anyone that younger by myself. I never even babysit Amy at 4. I said I don't have a problem extending Amy's stay, but I really can't take Kate. Rick was upset and said that Kate is Amy's sister, and thus my niece as well, and I have been playing favorites long enough. His wife said that the kids really need their aunt right now. I stood firm and insisted on only taking Amy with me as planned. They tried to tell me Kate is well behaved, and they had all her things packed, so it will be easy for me. I said they had the choice of letting Amy come with me or not, but I wouldn't babysit Kate. End of discussion. I eventually took Emmy, but Riggs called me bad guy for not helping Emmy's family. I wonder if they were right and I was the bad guy or not. So what do you think?